Kia ora and welcome to another Aotearoa Rugby pod. We've got an All Blacks team out, which is tremendously exciting. We're bringing in assistant coach Scott Hansen to talk a little about the squad, what goes into the selections and why they've made the decisions they've made. A good insight into the way they've constructed their coaching team and what they're trying to achieve with their squad. Of course, we'll talk a little bit about the Blues winning the final as well. I feel bad for the Blues though, Brynner, because they win the title and then we moved on to the All Blacks, not talking about it anymore. We'll put them at the end of the show along the way.
That's it, yeah.
Put James Parsons through some heat for about 40-45 minutes until we bring him up. So, also coming up in this show, we've got the Springboks versus Wales. We'll talk a little bit about the Springboks just continuing to look great off the back. And your questions. We've had your emails come through. Of course, we give away the Players Sport Ball. But we've also got another special prize which we'll give away next week. Send us an email at aotearoarugbypod.co.nz and you could be a person who wins this spectacular brand new All Black jersey, the 25th anniversary of Adidas sponsoring the All Blacks. What a superb piece of kit that is, and thanks to Players Sport, we'll be able to give you one of those if you send through an email and we choose you as the winner. So let's get into the show. Bryn Hall.
Yes.
Of course. Very happy. We're going to be talking to one of your mentors very, very soon.
Yep.
And in Takapuna, beautiful North Shore, we have James Parsons. A big day for James.
How are we doing?
Very well. We'll talk about the Blues later. We'll talk about
I don't think you need to feel sorry for us. It's still very much a hot topic on our lips.
He was having a great time during that. But let's start with the All Blacks squad. We've got a few new faces in there. Billy Proctor, a real bolter in Pasaleo Tosi. Cortez Ratima's in there. Wallace Satiti's in there. No Yosei, no Sotutu, no Lakai. The loose forward picks were incredible. Let's start there. Bryn, did you see that coming?
Well, I think Tosi was obviously a big one, right? I think had a great season for the Hurricanes in terms of with Tyrell Lomax being injured, and I guess you look at probably the attributes that Jason Ryan's probably looking at coming in with the props, right? With Williams and himself, two big men with big engines in terms of being able to be good with ball in hand. Both used to be number 8s, were in that kind of position, so their skill set I think is going to be pretty important. So I'd probably say that was one bolter, an actual true bolter. Being able to be picked, but I think the other guys were pretty deserving. Proctor has been great in terms for the Hurricanes, not only this year, but for long periods of time. Cortez Ratima, I think in the last month, really deserved that. We said that last week with his performance against the Hurricanes, which I thought was probably one of the reasons why he got picked, a little bit different on a beaten pack on the weekend. But yeah, some great surprises as well. So Wallace Satiti, who had a great month, we talked about it again. It seems like we actually got our predictions right, Ross.
Yeah. In
terms of Wallace Satiti was one game away, or it might have just been that Hurricanes game that I guess cemented him being in that All Black squad. So I don't know about you, Jipper, but George Bell as well, obviously with the hookers, Ricky Riccitelli missing out. A little bit surprising in that front, possibly?
Not a surprise, because we know Jace Ryan's a big fan, but he's obviously played for the All Blacks 15 and travelled over before that Twickenham game against South Africa last year. So you know he's a big part of their future. We've had this conversation many a time. You know, we know he is going to be an All Black, and now he is, probably quicker than he even thought. But yeah, you got to feel for Ricky. He couldn't have played any better. There's literally nothing else he could have done. He just was special, and probably right up there for player of the match in that final. The work he did off the ball, I could go on all day about him. And I think the battle between him and Kurt, has brought the best out of both of them. And unfortunately, he hasn't made the cut, but he'll be back in that All Blacks 15 side, and just biding his time, hoping he can get an opportunity at some point. But I was listening to an interview with Razor, and he just said the loose forwards is just a nightmare to pick. He's like, I just couldn't get 8 into 6. So you've got to feel for Hoskins, but absolutely wrapped for someone like Wallace Satiti, who he's different. He's really brutal and a little bit old school in his role, really direct. So I'm really happy for Luke Jacobson as well. That ability to play 6, 7, and 8. Old concrete shoulders. I think he is well suited to Test match footy. So there's a lot to like. And I suppose the most important bit is there's plenty of players that haven't made it, and that's what you want. unfortunately, because that shows the depth and strength of the side.
Playing hard appears to be the thing in that loose forward setup, right? And playing hard, just confrontational and in your face, not necessarily pretty.
No, and I think we've touched on it quite a lot in the last couple of years. I think with international rugby and the attrition that's required, I guess, for the flankers, and I think Luke Jacobson and Ethan Blackadder, pretty two similar guys who can cover multiple positions, but have that kind of, I guess, concrete shoulders, kind of physicality, and they do that. And then you've got the likes of Dalton Papali'i, who I think has improved in that physical area more in terms of putting on a bit more weight, and you saw that weight being used very, very well this year for the Blues. And then you've obviously got Ardie Savea, who comes back to Japan, the world best player. Getting him back in our stocks is going to be great. And then you've got a guy called Wallace Sotutu, who, look, sometimes you just got to pick a young kid, get him in the environment, and Razor being a loose forward as well, will be able to get his hands on him and seeing if he is up to international standard. But that doesn't take away that, if things don't work out, a guy like Hoskins Sotutu or a guy like Ricky Riccitelli or whoever it may be that has just missed out, they go to play well in New Zealand 15, New Zealand Māoris. There are injuries. There'll be some guy that we've talked around that'll come up, and probably in later months. But yeah, I like the side, and I'm really excited to hear what Scott Hansen has for us as well around the selection process and what they were thinking around it as well. Yeah,
and some huge props, Chip. Big.
Yeah, and I think you'll see, especially those players like Williams and Tosi, their skill set potentially being a real weapon off the bench. When tiring bodies, I think Test matches you're going to have to use some of those experienced boys to empty the tank of particularly this English side that's coming up, and then putting that little bit of spice later in the game against tiring players and defences is certainly exciting, and that's we'll never know until next weekend, but that you get the feeling that's what they're looking to do, is have that real 1-2 punch as we've seen that's been so successful for the Springboks.
We think about ball carrying number 8s and we think about ball carrying number 6s, but if you've got a tight 5 and essentially a bomb squad kind of situation where your hookers are that athletic and that powerful, you can kind of think about your loose forwards in a different way, can't you?
Massively. And I just think that's the way the game's going, is that brutality. In terms of the second row, and we've got 3 guys there that are exciting for that part of the game as well. And that tight 5 lane, that attacking and defensive platform, I'm salivating for something more. I just think he has just come of age this season. I'd love to see him get some real good minutes at international level, particularly against England, and get a real good gauge and some belief in himself, so that sort of competitive edge between him and Cody can really push both of them, because we saw how good Cody was when he came back as well, so he's fresh. And I think it's an exciting time for that type 5. They've got an opportunity to put their hand up.
And it's great to welcome into the show now All Blacks assistant coach Scott Hansen. Scott, thank you very much for joining us from Christchurch. Appreciate your time.
You're most welcome, Ross. G'day, James, Brenner.
Just going to get first shot at him. Scotty, mate, firstly, congratulations. Part of your first squad announcement with a new coaching group with Razor. I'm going to get straight into it with the halfbacks. Obviously, I know you as a person. 6 months of not being able to coach would have been a difficult time for you, watching that amount of code and not being able to connect with them. What are the traits that you've seen through the halfbacks that you see in that kind of position? Because correct me if I'm wrong, you have that kind of understanding and that kind of privilege to be able to pick the 9s, right? You're the person that gets to be able to choose the 9s. So how'd you find it this year, and what are the traits that you're looking for in your 9s?
Yeah, g'day, Brenner. So firstly, my role within the selection group was the 9s and 10s. We're really lucky with the group that we have, experience and potential. The traits we're looking for, as you well know, mate, is competitors. And those 3 boys are. We're very lucky to have TJ that's been selected on form. So I understand the story around resilience and struggle and what he's been through recently. I've engaged with him during the season, but we've spoken about what the next chapter looks like. So we're really excited to have TJ in the group to share that experience, but he needs to compete and come in, and we want him to be the best All Black he can be. And then you have Finlay, as you well know, as a competitor, both sides of the ball, high work rate, very consistent, and he adds a really nice mix to our group around experience and desire to be around a ball. And then you have young Cortez that's coming in, who's, Perenara, as you well know, as a 9, he's he's learned his craft. He's sat behind Brad. He's been behind a bit of a master there. He's had his time at the Chiefs this year where he's had to fight for the number 9 jersey, and in the last number of weeks he's owned that. His game in particular against the Hurricanes in the semi-final, he was right on, and what that looked like was presence around the ball, defensively organising his team. His support lines and the like have been awesome to watch. So really excited to work with all those 3 boys. As you well know also, mate, with my time with you, got a clear expectation around what the 9s should look like. They need to be a group that sets the team up at the beginning of the week, selfless. They do everything to set the team up like you used to, Brynna. And by the end of the week, they start thinking about their game. So really excited with this group.
The amount of conversations that me and Scotty would have had. I'm surprised you probably got the WhatsApp out to them already, Scotty, with the clips that you wanted them for that English tour.
Yeah, we've got a little group going already, mate. Don't worry about
that. Loves the detail. Like, that's the great thing about Scotty, and the boys will learn that, and most of New Zealand will learn it as well, that the amount of clips, the amount of work that he does behind the scenes, there's a reason why that he's there. So I look forward to seeing those boys. They're going to love the opportunity to be able to spend that with Scotty and all that. And sorry, just before you do jump in, Jip, just one thing I wanted to ask Scotty. 2 10s, you've selected 2 10s. The reason, thought behind that, was that because of Will Jordan's going to be coming back possibly in that rugby championship? We had that another 15 in there as well, with Stevie covering that 10 position?
That's right, mate. So there's the possibility around that and what that may look like. But where we are currently, and Brynna, it's always important to face current reality, mate, and embrace it. And where we're at the moment is D-Mac and Bodie. And Stevie, as we well know, has been playing really well at fullback for the Blues, I think. He's a bit of an unsung hero in that environment, I believe, around the subtlety at the back, his ability to move ball to space. And we also know he can play 10. So first and foremost, D-Mac and Bodie need to grab this jersey, and that'll be their challenge.
But just to just sort of chat around, what value or what importance do you put on the performance in the final series, being that lift up in intensity and probably giving you a better gauge for what you can see from these players at test match level?
So we would sit in the stand as an example then, James, and we'll be confirming a lot of our pitches, but you're looking at things like body language. You're looking at things around when it's getting tough, how they're handling their team, and when things maybe aren't going right, how they're responding. An example of that on the weekend, it was a tough weekend for the Chiefs. The Blues put on a clinic, but if you watch D-Mac picking his teammates up off the ground when things weren't going their way, and the important thing around that, Brynna, you know how important that is and how we drive that. So the other things that we'd come in for and look at in regards to finals, James.
Harry Plummer has played a lot of 12, but got a good fist of the 10. In the Blues, you must have been impressed with his growth and development this season.
Yeah, more than impressed. I'm a big fan. He just seems to have test match temperament, doesn't he? He's very calm. He's composed. I love the way he kept the ball in front of the Blues. They had a really defined game plan. Everyone knew it was coming. He was still able to keep the ball in front of the Blues, pin teams in corners. Then you talk about goal kicking. He grew his game because he had more time in the 10. And I hope that continues for him. I've been really positive towards him in our group, and he is a guy we're definitely looking at. I'm excited for him and New Zealand rugby with his continued growth.
Scott, when we talk about that Blues game plan and how, Vern Cotter brought in a very much a European style approach, is that where New Zealand rugby is heading as well? Or when we think, I suppose, a lot about New Zealand rugby, we think about what you're playing in front of you and, those moments. But is there going to be an evolution back in that direction, considering how successful that was for the Blues?
Oh, I think the key word you're saying there, Ross, is evolution. And all teams never had it, so need to have it. So what that looks like is finding where you are in your game and the ability to evolve. Now, the Blues are outstanding in what they had. It was their roster that allowed them to do it and their commitment to the game plan. Every team, as I said before, knew it was coming, but weren't able to stand in front of it. So I thought they put a clinic on in the final, to be honest, around their commitment to their game plan. What does that look like for the All Blacks? Well, we're open enough. We're open-minded to look at what's going well in New Zealand rugby and adapting with it. I will say, though, that a number of years ago, Ireland came here and showed us that that style. I do feel the All Blacks even last year had a bit of that in the middle of the field, and France in particular are the same. So it's there and thereabouts. It's something we definitely look at around, and like we talked, Bruno, we talk around where do we need to go? Where's the opportunity? And until they fix it, let's keep going there.
James and I and Ross, the last probably 12 to 18 months, have talked around the breakdown of physicality is just a lot different in international rugby than it is probably in a Super Rugby, even though the Blues were able to do that. Is that the reason why you've selected a guy like Sotutu, who obviously had a really good patch, I'd say, 5 to 6 games, and obviously warranted his selection, but the loose forward trio with the likes of Jacobson and Ethan Blackadder, that kind of mould of being able to get the hard work done, but then having that obviously out and out at number 8, like a Sotutu and Ade Severe as number 8s as well.
Bruno, how privileged are we in New Zealand to have the quality of loose forwards? We do. And the All Blacks is a tough team to pick, and that means some very good players at this stage aren't selected. It doesn't mean they're not very, very close to this team. When you talk around what Wallace and our loose forwards add, it's the cohesion in the group, is what they offer, their strengths, how they work well together. You watch any finals footy up in Europe at the moment, and the physicality and the mentality is very much aligned to where Test match rugby is at the moment. So we've got a clear understanding of where that needs to be. And Super Rugby and international rugby can be different around the physicality at the breakdown. And we understand where we're going to need to be around our ability to maintain possession and also have ruck pressure. So we've picked loose forwards that are going to allow us to do that, as well as have the ability to adapt during the games with skill sets. Our great strength in our loose forwards is the ability to beat a man also. So beat a man in a collision and also with their feet and their skill sets. So we'll be using those skill sets within our game.
We've seen Hoskins Sotutu score 1 million tries this year. We've seen him make a real impact, and to some degree, we've seen a slight change in his play, where you've probably seen a bit more effort, from where I'm coming from within his play. So he didn't make the side. What more do you guys need out of a player like Hoskins in order to make a squad?
Hoskins just needs to continue to do what he's doing. As I said, it's hard to put 34 into 32. It's a tough team to pick, the All Blacks. Hoskins can be seen to be unlucky. His efforts, his game at the Blues was of the highest standard. We feel currently in our All Black team, the group that we have is the group that's going to allow us to play the game that we want. Now, Hoskins needs to know, and he's been told, he's been given feedback around where his game's at, and we want him to continue to grow because he has point of difference elements within his game, and we accept that and we believe in him. And we hope he continues to play and challenge our selection.
What about Ricky Riccitelli, like the third hooker spot with Samasoni going down late? He's sort of been very consistent for the Blues, but you've opted for George Bell at this stage.
We've seen a lot of positives within his game and his growth. He's a young boy, or young man, I should say, respectively, has come through the New Zealand 20s environment recently. He's been in the New Zealand 15 team away overseas with Ricky, and we just feel at this stage getting George Bell in within this group with obviously the 2 other fine men that are in there, we just feel at the moment that's what's best for us. And we really enjoyed watching Ricky, especially on the weekend around his game. Just keep to it, just keep fighting away. As I said, opportunities will be there.
A couple of debutants, obviously Scotty. I think one of us talked about, obviously, is a bolter, Pasilo Leotosi. And obviously seen with Tosi Williams, obviously a big man. Is that where you kind of see that our forwards and our tight five are wanting to be athletes and be able to play with the ball? Both Tams and obviously Tosi used to be number 8, so their skill set is probably a little bit different in terms of what we've had previously. Is that the direction that you're seeing with these young props that you've kind of selected?
Yeah, I believe so, Bruno. And you're right on there around big men with skill sets. Pussy is a massive man with a long runway around potential. And I know Jace Ryan's really excited to get his hands on him and get him in within the environment. Skill sets, the ability to get off the ground quickly, the ability to attack also. And just as importantly, mate, as much as they're big men, the challenge for them is the ability to go low. So when you talk about defense with if you look at Pussy around early comms in the super season was, yeah, you're a big man, son, but get down low and get where you need to be in the tackle. And they've given us everything we need to do there. I think when you watch the World Cup last year, the highlight really around the ability for the South Africans and the Irish, they're big men to go low and be destructive defensively there. And it's something, if you look at the New Zealand super teams this year, they all adapted to really well. I think of the Chiefs, the Blues, and the Hurricanes around their big men getting low and being dominant down there. And Pussy's a great example. We know with Tamaiti, as you said, hell of a skill set. But, as James is most likely going to say shortly, yeah, great passer ball and all the skill sets, but you go on and you win your scrum and you set up your line out and you give us stance and stability there. So it's all the reward of, and as Mark keeps telling me, you win test matches up front, Scott. So I'm learning a lot as we go.
Music to my ears.
Yeah.
Scott, obviously the captain, Scott Barrett, named captain with Geordie Barrett and Ardie Severe being vice captains. What was the decision making around there? What are the traits that you saw in Scott? Obviously, you have coached him at the Crusaders and myself being able to obviously be under him, but I guess New Zealand, possibly what the reasons were around Scotty being named All Blacks captain?
You played under him in Brunner?
Yeah, he carried me, mate. He carried me for all the time I was there.
Yeah. So you told me what you enjoyed with him being your captain.
I like it.
I love it. Yeah, this is why I love it. He puts it right back on you. Not if it's not even just rugby, but also me here in the media. Look, to answer that, look, Scott, world class, I think, in terms of a lock. We talked about it last week. I think in the international level, he's grown a lot better to where he's going to be, I think, for the next World Cup cycle. He's going to be there or thereabouts, being talked about as one of the best locks with the skills that he does have. His leadership, that's growth around him being smart. Look, he has that many questions that he asks of the coaches and of the players in terms of just being rugby knowledge, really smart. And then also as well, character-wise, Scotty will probably jump on this, but a great man that you can follow because he's an action-first led. He's a great man off the field, with whether it be with his family or just how he's being bred. Those are kind of all the traits that I believe that Scotty has. And if I've missed anything out there, my old mate, but that seems to be possibly the case why he could have been named All Blacks skipper.
No, and you're right there, mate. All the things you've just spoken about, you're saying that as a guy that's played with him and under him in regards to leadership. You've supported him in that, mate. The other thing to consider with Scooter is, how often did you see him next to his 10 talking about a game and what it looks like tactically next coming up? How often did you see Scooter under the sticks talking around what it's going to look like next and how we need to play? So very astute around that. A man in the country can follow and believe in. And we're really excited to have Scooter lead this team. And then the other side of that is the relationship Bruno has with the boss, with Razor. So it's tight, it's connected. They can be really honest with each other quickly.
Yep.
And that's important. It's a really important relationship in any test environment around your captain and your head coach.
What's special about the way that those two work together?
They're able to have great conversation around what's best for the team. They're open-minded, they're transparent. That's what Scooter is. Scooter asks questions around the game. He has the ability to talk to the defence coach and the attack coach and seek clarity on what it means for the game and the team. He keeps and simplifies things. He's got a great ability to look at him and follow him. So if you're running around a rugby field and you want to know where your captain is, with Scooter, you look forward because he's in front of you.
Now, Scott, we get a lot of...
And I'll layer into that too, Brunner and Ross. Sorry to butt in there.
No, go for it.
You got Ardie. You got Ardie and Geordie there supporting him. And you got a Cody Taylor and all those people supporting him. Yeah. The All Black captaincy is a massive honour and a massive role, but you need all these people standing beside you, supporting you and taking care of elements of their game. So what does that look like? As you well know, attacking wise, we'll have our strategy group, Brunner.
Yep.
Defensively, we'll have our leaders. They'll run that for Scooter. They'll take care of a lot of things, and Scooter needs to be able to turn to his lieutenants and say, take care of things for me. And he has the ability to do that well.
One thing that you hear when you talk about the captaincy, they were public in the Ardie camp and public in the Scooter camp. The comment on Scooter was always, amazing player, isn't always on the field because of discipline. Did that come into the conversation at all?
There's an understanding of that and what that is. But what you look at also is growth. You look at the struggle that he's been through with it. You look at where he's evolved his game around that, and you watch him recently in his test match performances around his tackle height and this quality there. So he's had some tough lessons. He's going to be challenged always around what that looks like all the boys will. You've got to give him the grace around what have you learnt, you've reflected on it, and we have to go forward.
Chipper, you got anything else for Scott?
Well, I suppose probably a little bit of a shout out to Proctor. He sort of has been, a player that has performed for many, many years now, and a big reason why the Hurricanes do so well on attack and defence. Must be exciting. I suppose that 13 position is so critical, and both sides of the ball, but particularly that defensive effort that he can provide, and then I suppose that battle that he'll have with Rico for that jersey.
Yeah, no. What's been really exciting, James, is my recent time in Super. You get captivated in your environment. So, your nines are your nines, and that's all you see. So going now into the All Black role and becoming an All Black selector, you see players in a different light. Leon and I had Billy last year on the New Zealand 15 tour to Japan, and it was like, who's this kid? Who's this kid? His work rate, his ability to get to edges, his desire to be around the ball, and he's grown his game considerably this year around his attack as a centre, his ability to beat people with his feet. We know about his distribution. And then you add to that his quality as a defender. Myself being the defence coach, you need world-class centres at test match level defensively. They've got to run your system around where you're going, are you high, and what your reads are. They're looking after your wingers just as much as wingers are looking after centres. Billy has got a massive engine on him. There's an opportunity there for him.
You would have obviously watched a hell of a lot of England. Obviously an opportunity on the weekend. They played in Japan. What things have you picked up? What can we expect as viewers to see in their game?
Yeah, their game on the weekend, James, confirmed a lot of the pitches. If you haven't watched England as a New Zealand viewer, then you may be surprised, but you shouldn't be, because the way they finished the Six Nations was a team that was able to play to width with skill sets and their ability to beat teams with their ball carriers and their back threats. So, yes, we understand their set-piece presence. Yes, we understand their kick game. But they had beautiful balance in the Six Nations. When you look at the Irish and the French games, very impressive rugby. But then you have the understanding also around the team that can play South Africa in the World Cup the way they did around their pressure rugby game, their kick game also. So we've got a massive challenge in front of us. We're really looking forward to it. But we're expecting an England team to come down here and play.
What are the areas that you see that are non-negotiables to be able to, I guess, have the result of winning test matches and trying to be dominant, I guess, and reclaim us being the best rugby nation in the world?
Yeah, it starts with, and you've heard this a lot, Brunner, it starts with effort and care, and it's the simplicity of that.
Yep.
The simplicity of the effort and care that we have on and off the ball. Fundamentally, test matches, set piece pressure and presence. And then around that, having a team that can evolve and adapt during a game. I often have people say, what's the All Black game plan going to be? Yeah, it's going to be this particular week because that's the opposition. But our ability to adjust during a test, we have our commitment to what our game looks like, but what if it doesn't quite go that way? Are we able to adjust? That's the group that we've got to grow and continue to grow. We've got a very good team. We're going to build off the great work that's been put into this team. And we're going to continue to evolve our capacity to influence the game defensively and obviously on attack.
I suppose one of the things about you, Scott, is probably not as well known maybe as some of the other coaches within the group. So maybe we'll find out a little bit about you. You played a bit for Canterbury. Why did you transition into coaching and what led you in that direction?
Mate, I really like being in the background. I want to stay that guy. I enjoy just being in the background, just going about my work. So I'm happy for you guys to keep it that way.
We failed at that.
I'll fulfill my media requirements when I need. In regards to my playing background, yeah, I'm not too interested in that, to be honest. I've moved on. Yeah, I was involved in the first year Crusader team. Great privilege to be involved. What got me involved with coaching, Ross, was just love for the game. Love the game. If there's a young James Parsons or a young Brynner out there that wants to get better and they look at you, I was always excited to, in some capacity, try and help them. As Bryn will attest, now that's with a lot of support and just as much challenge, but we work it out together. We work it out together, and fundamentally, mate, is just my love for the game and working with people that want to get better. And then what happens through the layers is the players grow you just as much as your environments. So they share their experiences, their view on the game, and I became more understanding of the game. My time with a lot of quality players teaching me about the game, and now I'm able to share that and my view around it. I've got a real commitment to helping people be the best they can be, and I'm excited to do that within the All Black environment. Already talking to a number of the boys, they want to be challenged. They always want to grow. Brynner, you well know, with a guy like Sam Whitelock, he would stand in front of me every day and say, Scott, how are you going to get me better? You know, those guys excite me. And Owen Frank's the same. And within this group of the All Blacks, we have people like that. So I'm grateful, I'm privileged, but I'm looking forward to getting my hands on some players that want to get better.
Wow. Oh, man, I'm inspired. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go.
That's the greatness of obviously Scott Hansen. He's going to go back into the background now. He's going to watch that many code clips. But yeah, look, very, very lucky knowing being able to work with him and a lot of the coaches that have been there. I think New Zealand rugby's going in the right direction in terms, obviously, you know, we went through a bit of a passage where we weren't able to be where I think we want to be. I truly do believe that the coaches that we do have, just having the honour to be able to do that with them, New Zealand's going to really enjoy this coaching group that we have, and I think we're going to see the best All Blacks team for this, especially with this next World Cup cycle and the time that these guys are going to put in for the All Blacks. So really excited.
Yeah. On that note, Scott, thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate it, and hopefully we see you again soon. Pull you out of the background for a couple of seconds at some stage.
You're most welcome, mate. I look forward to talking to you next year.
He's pretty good, eh?
Oh, he is. Yeah, just spending that much time with him, knowing that he's going to get the best out of those 9s and 10s, and more so defensively, the amount of work that he'll do and the challenge that he'll bring for that group, which, you know, which players want. Strip and I can attest to this. You know, you just want to be challenged as a coach, as a player, and he will definitely do that. But, you know, the couple of things I did hear from him was, you know, obviously the effort. Yeah. Was a big selection criteria for a lot of players.
Yeah, and you can see that in the loose forwards.
Yep, and competitiveness. Yeah. And trust me, there's a lot of competitive 9s out there, but he will drive that. And not only just him, but a lot of that coaching group, competitiveness and trying to be the best and being open to be able to be coached like that. You're definitely going to need that with the likes of Scott Hansen and that coaching group.
Jip, it almost seemed like that was almost above the skill set in some ways. The mindset came first. That appeared to be his message again and again and again.
You know, you sort of always want what they term, I suppose, cognitive empathy and emotional empathy. You know, the cognitive stuff is, can you make me better? Can you assist in solving my problems? And then the emotional side of it is, does he have your back? And as a player, you could just sense that every time we talked, he wants the best, and you know that challenge from him is only coming from a great place. And I think as a coach, well, the coaches that I really enjoyed always, I suppose, gave me that feeling. And I don't know Scott that well. It's probably the first time you're speaking to him, but I just get the sense that he's going to find solutions with you, which I always felt the best coaches are the people that have always been amazing teachers for me, not just at rugby, obviously, but at school and university, is they always ask questions and they let you find the answer for yourself, and then you've got that ownership. And, you know, sometimes if you get dropped, you almost dropped yourself through that theory a little bit. You almost left the room going, yeah, no, put a line through me. I'll come back next week. But, you know, because you know they have your back, you want to do the very best for them and the team. And I don't know, man, that interview really excited me. I loved how simple his answers were, direct and to the point. I'm buzzing for this England Test series. It's just because I agree with them, man, that this is a good English side. It's going to be a real battle of attrition.
And just a good example was, like the question that you get put back on you straight away.
Yeah.
So very similar. That's the kind of the coaching style, like you never really can rest on your laurels. Or
you can't slump into your chair
not
and
anything.
Daydream.
Or he's like, you're sitting on that back of your chair, son. You think you're going too good, are you?
Yeah.
Just something like, rightio, put my chest out and get back to listening to what we need to do. So it's a great quality that Scott has, and I know that group really. I can have a few mornings when they're waking in for reviews and going, oof, I need to get on the front of my seat here, because he cares, and he does the work to be able to back it up as well.
I used to love that in press conferences with Steve Hansen. He'd be like, well, what do you think? And he'd be like, hey, I'm conducting the interview, mate.
Well, that's, sometimes, you need this, you need that to play all right. You need to, oh, geez, actually, I was off a few seconds here, or a couple of minutes here, and that could be in meetings or whatever it may be. So, really stoked that most of New Zealand got to see that, a really open and honest interview of how how Scotty is and what he's going to bring to that All Black environment.
You mentioned Steve Hansen there. He was world class in it as well. For the short time I spent with him, he knew what strings to pull.
Yeah.
I definitely get the sense Scott's very similar.
And Steve, if the first string didn't pull, he was onto the second and the third string quite quickly. He'd figure you out, like by the end of the conversation, he'd pulled every string and he knew exactly who you were.
Great man.
Now, we've got some questions through as ever. We've got the Player Sport Ball this week. And just to remind you, please send in some questions for next week, because we've got a very special prize for you next week. The person who wins the prize over here, the brand new All Black jersey over here, released by Adidas, celebrating 25 years with the All Blacks. We've got one of those to give away in your size. So get us an email, get into the comments section. It's a pretty cool piece of kit. Get in and we'll take a winner next week and send a jersey your way, courtesy of Players Sports. So thank you to Players Sports for providing that jersey and getting it out to a few All Blacks fans out there. The question for this week is from James Feeney, and he gets the ball. I believe the great challenge for Scott Robertson is to acknowledge that the All Blacks are not the Crusaders. He could establish a Crusader-like AB squad and strategy, but that would resemble the style of South Africa. How does Razor bring over the set-piece breakdown dominance and the winning mindset of the Crusaders, but foster the spontaneous attacking dynamic of most Kiwi Super Rugby sides? Do you have an answer for that?
Well, I think Scott probably just answered a bit of that, didn't he? He talked around set piece being really massive. So I think the areas that he has touched on, I think the All Blacks can have a big area around trying to own that and being able to be really good in that area. But I think the best thing as well is that Scott and all that coaching group gets to choose from all the best players in New Zealand. So different attributes, different types of players that they can be able to bring in and mould to the style that they think they can do collectively from all 5 franchises, right? So they might have thought at the Crusaders, there could be a specific way with the recruitment that we've gone, but the pleasures of obviously being the All Black coach, you can do whatever you want. There's so much X factor in certain parts. You've got Moore, you've got obviously Sotutu, who's played really well. They have different traits to obviously maybe the Crusaders possibly, but that's the great thing about being All Black coach. I don't know what you think, but I think, having the ability to be able to choose from all these kind of players is one of the positives, I guess, for us being a country being so spoiled with so much great talent.
Yeah, look, I think the one thing I've seen from Scott Robertson is he doesn't work in silos. He surrounds himself with really good people, and Scott Hansen sort of said it a number of times. We have an open mind, and I think the more often you can have an open mind, that gives you the ability to sort of change on the run. I don't think they'll be very fixed in any style, to be honest. But they've also proven, like, I sort of knew that was sort of a question around, Razor's whole coaching career. If it was, New Zealand in the 20s, that was Canterbury. Everywhere he's gone, he's had success because I think he keeps it simple, but he also isn't someone that thinks he knows it all, and he has a fantastic group around him to sort of lead the areas. And I think even look at the way they select the team. Everyone's got a responsibility. It's not, an outside selector and a couple of coaches. Everyone's involved. But I don't know, that inclusivity excites me, and I think he will be open to listening to the players' thoughts. I don't think he'll be going in with too many fixed views, and that's what makes him a great coach.
Chip knows this. The more prepared you are, and the more clearer that you are, the more decisive that you can be under pressure. And when you're training that every single day, under pressure, for a long period of time, it might be 2-3 seasons where you've seen the success of the Crusaders for long periods of time because they've got that money in the bank, having those coaching styles, having those conversations, like the amount of what-ifs that Razor would go through in terms of what the weeks can look like, and we might not even have thought about this. What if? It's like, what if our bus is late by 30 minutes and we don't have to warm up? All those kind of conversations, which you don't think you're going to have conversations about, but you have them, and if they do happen, then you're able to obviously execute under pressure because you've gone through it. So, yeah, really, really excited to see.
The answer is run. Is that the answer?
What's that?
Is that the answer's run?
Yeah, dance maybe. I don't know.
Call an Uber.
Something, but you know what I mean? Like, it's
yeah.
just everything. There's no level of like.
No stone unturned.
No stone unturned.
Yeah.
So, which is great as a player because, you know, if you're in a game and it might be a different option that you haven't even thought of, but you've prepared for it, you give your best self the opportunity to then go out and execute that under pressure.
Yeah. Now, we've waited a long time within this program. A long time. Jipper has had to wait and wait and wait. James Parsons, the Blues are Super Rugby champions. It's a good weekend to be alive.
Oh, it's glorious. And just emphatic performance under pressure. And that's shown it so many times this season when the game was on the line. You know, they had the ability to deliver in the big moment. Most, 9 times out of 10, apart from the Hurricanes and Crusaders games. Hurricanes were sort of forced with a few injuries, but Crusaders obviously pretty dominant with that loss. But outside of that, they put a clinic on, and you have to tip your cap to Vern Cotter and Patrick Creepup, who, like the simplicity and the discipline to play their game was just exceptional. Total different style than what we'd seen in previous years. I know I always use this stat, but the single figure offloads, it was just belligerent. It was just, in those conditions. At 17-0, man, I was just so happy. And just happy for that group. They've had some tough years, so good reward. They've learned from the lessons. That's the thing, you don't want to make the same mistakes twice, and they certainly were much better on this final than the previous one they lost at home.
So I've got a question through from Chris Minto via email. He's one of our regular question askers, Jip. I'm really interested in your thoughts on this. Vern Cotter, obviously we've got an All Blacks coaching set up for the next 4 years. How does New Zealand Rugby acknowledge Vern Cotter, who's obviously got experience all over the place internationally and at club level, and make sure that he is celebrated and given the opportunities he needs to make sure that he stays here and continues to help teams excel?
Well, he's a natural here by all accounts. I don't know him that well, but just speaking to the players, it's about them and making them the best version. And I know this isn't international footy and he may not be interested, but I'd love to see him be in and around that All Blacks 15. I'd love to see someone like Craig McGrath as well get opportunities. I suppose that's the only real logical team later in the year that he could potentially coach, because those coaches have obviously all moved on to the All Blacks set up, so that we'll be seeing new coaches there, but maybe a Clark Laidlaw. But I think he's achieved a lot. I don't think he's really out there, sort of thinking about himself and the accolades. And I think, certainly in Auckland, that first season, come away with a title, you're going to be well loved. He's not going to have to buy a beer for a long time in this city, I don't think.
He has an eye for things as well. AJ Lamb, I always thought of him as an outside back. We've got a question here, or a point from Alroy Bentley from Port Elizabeth. He takes him, puts him at 12 and shows him the way. And boom, you've got a guy who's playing out of his skin. Yeah,
well, I think Vern obviously would have, had discussions around that, but obviously there's Craig McGrath, Dan Hellinger, who are in and around the backs and being able to, I guess, thinking that AJ's got the ability to be able to do that. But I think their game plan suits really well to an AJ, right? Being able to carry really good off the transition. He did that really well in the final in terms of getting off the line-up, getting over the good go forward ball. Doesn't need to kick as much, but showed a bit of that, being able to do it in the final in the wet condition. So you'd have to think if he does end up staying as a 12, he's going to have more time to be able to build that into obviously his skill set has been as a 12. But again, I think all of these players within that Blues environment, whoever was playing 1 to 15, Funaki's had a great year. Obviously had Forbes, who was probably out, who was there for a bit part of the year. All the 23, and talked around the previous success of the Crusaders. It's not just the 15, it's the 23, it's the 37. All the guys that are doing the same, all on the same page to try and win a title. And by all accounts, more than messages coming through their group, it seemed like it was a 1 to 37 effort. So yeah, they were well deserved. I think Vern Cotter, he would be a guy when he does stay around, he'll be thinking, right, we've done that. what's the next challenge? How can I get these guys to go another gear? Because he'll be thinking in terms of pretty much a similar group. Yes, there are some players that are leaving, but that style that they do have, it seems like if you're going to come into that Blues environment, you're a forward, this is going to be your DNA. This is what we're going to look for, and it wins games like we saw on the weekend.
Now let's talk about the Chiefs as well. I've email from another regular, Kerry Geertson. Why, oh why, did Mackenzie kick so much ball away when they had so little of it? When they held onto the pill, they scored. He says, my unbiased opinion is that Plummer has outplayed Mackenzie twice now and has been the most consistent 10 in the country this season. Is there anything to that as far as kicking away too much ball, Jip?
No, I mean, that's the Chiefs' way. They've always had a high number of kicks. Yeah. I do want to go back to Type 5, setting the platform. Like, I think that's, you can always look at a 10's ability to execute to the platform they're given at set piece and scrum time. And, you know, like, this Blues forward pack put it on an absolute plate for Plums, and he's just, you know, I don't think Damien was all too bad. I just think sometimes in those conditions, playing without the ball gives you a better chance to win games, and you've got to get that balance right, as Bryn will know. You know, like if you don't get the balance right and you overwork players, you'll run out of steam. But I mean, the Blues just got off to such a hot start. They had to chase the game early, which, you know, does, you know, it just puts that pressure on it, mounts and mounts.
I just think Clayton said it after his game, they felt probably a little bit different this time last year. You know, they probably felt that they lost that final, whereas this one, they were just well and truly outplayed. They didn't fire a shot. So probably a little bit different feelings in terms of what the two finals were in the last 2 years.
Let's go to a few awards for this year as Super Rugby is over. Jip, I want to know, who was your player of the season in Super Rugby? Who stood out for you above all else?
I want to say Paddy, but he was out a lot.
Yeah.
You know, like I really think he was a massive reason in terms of his leadership. But for me personally, I just think with the pressure of the Blues team jersey, I just can't look past Harry Plummer and the development he's had, and the way he orchestrated them throughout that whole final. I just don't think you saw a more influential player throughout the year. And I like how he just got better and better when the pressure came on. And as we heard from Scott Hansen, he has put himself well and truly on the radar.
So, player of the season and your most improved player, Harry Plummer.
I think it's unfair to say most improved purely because he's finally got some time in the saddle. Yeah. And I think we've always known Harry's got this ability, but you know, like I think we always knew that he had it in him, but you know, most improved, you know, for me, it would be another 10 personally. I think Brett Cameron really put his hand up and got back to that form that we saw when he was chosen in the All Blacks, and he just looks measured, calm, composed. So I know I'm focused on the game drivers, but I do think you know, all the forward packs delivered and fronted for these guys, and they pulled trigger, and you know, it's exciting for all those clubs, and it's exciting, I think, with the 10 position because everyone was a little bit nervous about it. But I really think there's some depth growing there. We know we had a question a few weeks back around Talia Whango and Cam Miller, so there's a lot to like.
What about for you?
Well, I think you can't go past Paddy. I think even though he did missed a few games, I think what he's done for that Blues franchise and the amount of time that he's put in, I think that when his performances in those big games, they were needed. And look, you look on the weekend, they possibly might look at the result, but that's how influential Paddy was in terms of the back of the year. I also had Hoskins Sotutu, obviously missed out on the All Black squad, but had a fantastic year in terms of being able to be the top try scorer along with Sevu Reece, who I also had as another player of the year nominee with the Crusaders in a really poor side. Who else did I have? Any of the loose forwards from the Hurricanes. Yeah. Obviously they missed out, but they were collectively really, really good together. But if I'd have to go player of the year, I'd have it as Paddy in terms of being a winning captain for the Blues. My most improved this year, I had a couple, there's just a couple of notable mentions. I had Xavier Numia, who I thought for the Hurricanes, due to his injury, possibly if he wasn't injured, would he be in and around that environment? I thought his improvement was really good. You've got Noah Hotham and Jamie Hanna, two young guys that have come through that probably have big futures in New Zealand rugby. I've got Talia from the Highlanders. I thought his move back down to the Highlanders, he had a great season in that camp. And also, you can't go past Ricky Riccitelli. Look, I think very, very unlucky not to be in that All Black squad. I think with his involvement and his growth of how he's played this year, I thought he was one of the most improved players. And lastly, you can't go past Wallace Atiti, the debutant All Black. I think the way that he played and almost just kind of lightning in a bottle, right? Got given an opportunity. We've talked about it a lot. When you get given that opportunity, sometimes it's a rich trainer form, and he was able to build performances, which in turn made it an All Black. So I'd have to go, those would be my most improved.
Now, we did have a game of international rugby on the weekend. The Boks played Wales. It was, as Jip said last week, actually quite an impressive looking starting lineup from the Boks. And when you looked at the two teams on paper, the result was a foregone conclusion and went the way everyone thought it might have gone.
Yes, but I enjoyed their style that they did win it. I think with Tony Brown coming on board and actually talking to Clive Smith when I was in Japan around their skill set, and he actually probably saw that a lot on the weekend. Their ability wanting to play out the back, their phase play shape, and having a couple of block runners, being able to, I guess, manipulate the defence and then being able to get that ball away under pressure. Look at Creel and Mumpipi's tries. They were actually able to do that. So it's actually a very scary thought, because we talked around a lot, you know, when they do attack, they're really good at it. But now that they've got that detail in terms of the actual really good phase play shape attack with Tony Brown, and you have to think it's going to get better over time, along with their kicking contestables, they were able to do that. And then they got parity in their scrum and being able to get their line out mauls as well, with Malcolm Marks being back there as well. So it actually looks like they're going to marry up their game plan really, really nicely for this next World Cup cycle, bringing Tony Brown in. So Jip, I don't know if that's what you saw as well, but geez, they've got some good ingredients, I think. They're going to be really building nicely for that Rugby Championship.
Oh, mate, when you saw the players they named in that squad and then you saw the starting lineup, you knew it was going to be an absolute clinic. But they were patient. I agree with you. I think Russell's just a smart operator. He's always trying to think that one step ahead. And, you know, Tony Brown is someone that we know that has the attacking flair and mindset, and you could see his fingerprints on their phase play attack already. And the more time he has with them, the better they will get. So it's a scary prospect, but exciting. I think for us as All Blacks fans, you know, we'll get to have a real good gauge of where we're at as a team on our journey through this new cycle. But ever impressed by the Springboks, Malcolm Marks in particular. But that forward pack was just, they're men possessed. Yeah. So it's great to watch. I love watching them play.
Rassi obviously has a plan, a long-term plan.
Yep.
And you watch every 4-year cycle, something else gets added. And this time, it is the ultimate in creative coaching for attack. And
well, that's I guess the daunting task, I guess, for us as Kiwis and I guess all around the world, because for so long they've been able to win through brute strength and around the 22 area with their big men being able to score points, being really, I guess, very similar to what the Blues are in terms of getting to that 22 with the big men. They've always been great around their set piece, their line out more, even line out attack, but then also their scrum dominance with the bomb squad, with the 3 people that they have there, whether they're starting or coming off the bench. And now you've got Tony Brown coming to be able to, I guess, make their attack even better, which is an area that we've always talked about. If they could just strike more and attack more in that phase play shape and not be not so negative, but obviously they played more of a kicking style and been able to build pressure through their line speed defence off that. So very scary and daunting prospects. So for South African fans, we're probably going to be praising a lot more of them, because I'm really excited for them to see how they're going to play that form of rugby with Tony Brown being in that coaching group now.
Now, speaking of excited, you're in the commentary team this weekend for the Māori All Blacks versus Japan 15.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, really excited, I think, looking against the Japanese on the weekend. Obviously not the result that they would have wanted, but a great opportunity, I think, as well for these Māori All Blacks who haven't made the All Blacks. You think, obviously, guys like Sean Stevenson, Ruben Love's obviously in that 4-person replacements coming in. But, a lot of guys that obviously will want to play and put their names forward for the All Blacks, and great to be able to also represent the Māori people as well, and Japan. It's always a great, I guess both cultures are very similar, so really looking forward to getting into it, and being hopefully like my old mate Jipper, who is great at doing it these days, so hopefully I can do half the job that my old mate does there in the camera over there.
You're a smooth operator.
Well, ARP crew taking over the world, eh? Hey, that's what it's all about.
All right, we'll try.
Well, Jipper, thank you very much for joining us once again from the beautiful North Shore. All Blacks squad, very exciting. Brent, great to have you in studio once again. And thank you very much for joining us. We will be bringing you more All Blacks content over the next few weeks. We'll have Scott Barrett and Sevu Reece in with us, amongst others. So there'll be a few conversations to drip into the show as the weeks go by to teach you a little bit more about what's going on within this All Black squad. So thank you all for joining us. Thank you for the crew who helped put this together. There's a lot of people who helped put the show together. Thank you to them as well. We'll see you next time. Mā te wā.